I was very fortunate because I had already had breast cancer. By the time I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, the doctors knew, and they had just come from a conference actually where there had been some evidence about a new class of drugs that targeted that particular BRCA mutation. And they'd had some anecdotal evidence about other things working for people with a BRCA mutation. So when I went to see them, first thing, the first doctor I saw mentioned these new experimental drugs. I really wanted to get them. I became kind of obsessed with it. We couldn't get them because I didn't qualify. These drugs were being tested in people with the BRCA mutation who had breast cancer. So I wasn't eligible for them, and they talked to some other experts, and they figured out, and they decided basically to take a flyer that there was an old drug that kind of worked in the same way and targeted the mutation. So they just decided to try it with me in combination with the standard drug that was then the standard of care for pancreatic cancer that didn't work that well. So they did that, and basically they had no expectations. And they said, okay, we'll try this for 2 months and we'll see what happens. So just to backtrack a little bit, what had happened was that I was diagnosed in an emergency room. And the people there at that hospital said, don't worry, your tumor is operable. And they sent me to my doctors, to Dr. Gallinger, who's the surgeon first. And he kind of disagreed when he looked at me and he looked at the imaging. So I think part of it might have been that instead of saying, no, you're not eligible, they tried to figure something else out. And again, we were talking about this experimental drug that I wasn't eligible for. And they figured that they would try this other drug. It's an old drug called cisplatin. It's one of a class of drugs called platinum drugs. And it had actually been tried in pancreatic cancer, in a general population of pancreatic cancer before, and it hadn't worked. So they did this and they said, okay, we will see what happens. And 2 months later, they sent me for imaging to have a CT scan. And that was kind of interesting. It was a bit fraught. The CT scan happened to be scheduled on the Jewish Day of Atonement, which is the day where you're inscribed in the Book of Life or not. And I could have changed the day, but I thought, no, I'm going to keep this. This is meaningful. And I was inscribed in the Book of Life.